Sometime in the next few decades, humans will leave this planet to live in another world.
That means that some people in our life can be the first Martians. How about that?
We're finding out a lot about how to explore Mars in our station. Over 1,000 people from over 40 countries have actually participated in one crew or another.
It's the grandest adventure I could possibly imagine. That is, for me, the most important reason why we should pursue the establishment of life on Mars.
If we go to Mars in our time, 200 years from now, there'll be new branches of human civilization on Mars.
Hey, I think we are live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Red Planet Live, episode 3, where we're actually going to be talking about careers in STEM and the path and the education path. And we actually have a fantastic panel with me today. So I'm going to actually start bringing them on, and we will get to know everybody, and then we'll actually jump right into the show. And I appreciate everybody coming on today. So let me just start adding people in. There we go. So I am going to make this a little bit bigger there, and it looks fantastic. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. So with us today, we have Susan Holden Martin, Matthew Williams, Dr. Brian Keating, and Nancy Atkinson. So I'm excited for you guys here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. So what I'd like to do is actually start out. I think the best way to kind of move forward is to just let's go around round table. I'll start. I'll just kind of call you out by name, and then if you introduce yourself, where you work, if you'd like, what you're affiliated with, anything you'd like to say, and then we'll just go through, and then from there we'll just jump right in, and we'll actually get started and get this show moving. Okay. So how about Susan? You're right next to me, so you go right ahead.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for being with us tonight. Some of you may know me, some may not. I work for the Mars Society, former executive director many years ago, currently steering committee member, management team of MDRS, and the EU Interact station manager for Flashline in the Arctic. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about alternative ways to be in the science field. Thanks for having me, Ron.
Oh, a pleasure. Matthew, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Matt Williams. I'm a writer for Universe Today and Interesting Engineering. And I too came to the STEM fields as a science communicator. Comparatively recently in my life. So my own experiences there, I definitely want to let people know exactly how they can come into these fields later in their lives, and without the benefit of formal training. Although that's just the shortened version of it. There's a lot more to it than just that.
Maybe a little bit, but we'll definitely get into that. Okay, Dr. Keating, you're up.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be with you. You may hear some young non-STEM professionals entering into my broadcast studio. I am apologizing in advance for that. I am the Chancellor's Distinguished Professor of Physics at the University of California, San Diego, where I also host the Into the Impossible podcast, which is a podcast dedicated to exploring all the ways that human beings imagine, envision, create the future inside and outside of STEM fields. And I am ashamed. I am humiliated that I'm here with Nancy, because Nancy, I love your book and I have been dying to get you on my show, and I haven't been able to schedule it. I've been just overwhelmed, and I want to extend just a mea culpa. I love your work, and we're going to get to it sometime before the next pandemic. I promise. I'm so sorry I haven't gotten to it. You were so kind to send it to me, and I can't wait to have you on the show, and I'll make every effort to make it happen. I'm just booked so much.
I understand completely, and I'd love to join you.
What a perfect lead into Nancy.
and there's Matt with my book. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
that's very sweet. So yes, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, I was just said it came out long ago, and
yes.
It is quite the piece of literature.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
It is,
Well,
it
yeah,
is, it is.
I'm Nancy Atkinson. I'm a space and science journalist, primarily with Universe Today. I've been with them for 17 years. I'm the contributing editor there, but I also write for the National Space Society's Ad Astra magazine and the Planetary Society's both their website and the Planetary Report. I'm the author of 2 books, the one that Matt held up and that Dr. Keating was talking about, 8 Years to the Moon, which is about the Apollo program. And then I also wrote Incredible Stories from Space, which is about NASA's robotic missions to space and the people who work behind the scenes to make those happen.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And yeah, that's fantastic. And yeah, thank you. I really want to extend my appreciation to all of you, because I mean, I know how busy each and every one of you are. And, you know, to even, I have to give myself a little bit of a pat on the back here, because the logistics of actually getting you amazing people all together for an hour on the same night, I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now. So that was a feat. And I really do appreciate it. I mean, it's just amazing. So everybody in the audience, welcome. And so what we're going to do is I will kind of keep my eye on the comments as they come in. And so really the questions that we want to kind of see that would come in would be centered around, how do you actually get into a career in STEM? I mean, we're actually in a point in time, and I think we're making history today, is that, you know, with the commercialization of space, you know, we are seeing really that careers are, I think the need is going to explode, no pun intended, with rockets and all that stuff. But it's, you know, we're going to see more and more requirements and need for people to be in all different areas and disciplines when it comes to space, STEM, and STEAM, have you. So I want to kind of touch on that subject. So I think for the first couple minutes, I think I want to touch on that. You know, obviously, I think a lot of people, especially on this panel, myself, have an untraditional path that we've gotten into this industry, but I don't want to leave out anybody either. So I want to kind of talk about, let's go over, what does the traditional path look like if you want to get into the STEM field? I mean, I think if you look at it from, I mean, Dr. Keating, I think you would be a perfect one to lead this this discussion on this, is that obviously working at a university, you kind of know, you help and you guide and you mentor people coming through the path as young students getting and working their way into that industry. So maybe if you want to kind of touch on that, is what does that look like today? You know, think of end of high school and up. Yeah,
what it looks like is a lot like the Hunger Games. And unfortunately, it's gotten more and more challenging. And that makes, you know, on one hand, it makes my job really hard. And on the other hand, it makes my job really easy, as I'll explain. So I only get the best and brightest. And these are people that come from all walks of life, literally from every continent, including Antarctica, every nationality, every background, every gender, every spectrum, everything. And I get the best. And that's wonderful, except for the fact that to get there, they've had a battle in a Hunger Games-like fashion from high school to college to graduate school, then to get a postdoc, then to maybe get an assistant professorship, a tenure track position, then maybe to get tenure, then maybe to get grant funding, where the average age is in the 40s for many folks in my profession. And then if you finally get there, then maybe you go for the Nobel Prize and you get you know, a chaired professorship. And it's gotten harder and harder, and it's exactly the inverse of, I think, the way it should be. If we want to be an interplanetary species, if we want to get to Mars and have, you know, the University of Western Mars or whatever, Southern Mars, I think it's going to be imperative that we really lower the barriers to competition, to eliminate and to educate people, to make my job basically obsolete, where you have the sage on the stage scraping one piece of rock on another piece of rock, and really use distributed technologies of AI, machine learning, et cetera, and virtual, like what you're doing now, what we're all doing now, and do remote education. And if we can do that, we can educate 1 billion brains and include them in this effort to make not only our species interplanetary, but to be stewards of the planet and to protect the only planet that we know where life exists. So it's gotten extremely hard. It's harder now. There are fewer people that do what I do than are people in the NBA. And so that's not the way it should be.
Okay. Could I put you right on point, actually? You know, why is it harder?
Well, there's competition for very, very scarce resources. We have lived in a society that uses technology like we're communicating right now in your pocket, and we just take it for granted. And like Carl Sagan, the progenitor of the Planetary Society, said, never have so many, used so much technology with so little understanding thereof. And I think we just take it for granted. If you ask the average person, I had Neil deGrasse Tyson on my show a couple of months back, and he said, if you ask the average person how much of our national budget goes to NASA, they say half or a quarter. It's less than a couple percent. And as Nancy knows from the discussion, we did so much with so few and so little back then. Even in today's dollars, Nancy, right? It would be a couple of maybe $100 billion, $200 billion. Okay, that's expensive, but we spend more on lipstick every year than we spend on NASA. And I think it's just a shame because we have to really value what we're doing and in order to make it inspiring, but we need to reward people and not have such incredible high barriers to entry as we do now.
Okay. So if we do a kind of a value takeaway from this, what do you recommend that people, again, we're kind of going back to the people that are following a traditional path, getting through, high school, university. What do you recommend that they do today in the current landscape that's out there today? What do they do to give themselves a foot up and a foot in to actually to get into this? What can they do to actually put themselves and stand out?
Learn as much as you can before you get to college. Learn online resources. I provide, what I call 30-minute thesis every Thursday. I just posted one today. I give deep dives. I never dumb it down. There's millions of people around the world that are doing similar things on YouTube. I really have to say, it's not just plugging my channel, which you can get wherever videos are sold, or my books. It's actually taking advantage. I never had this. I didn't even have Google. I had to wait till the Sunday New York Times came out to figure out, that bright dot over there, that's Jupiter. That's not a plane that's always in the same position. So there's never been so many great resources to learn, most of which is coming. I think YouTube is going to be the most phenomenal education engine that the human mind has ever known. But and there are a few cultivated resources ranging from my colleagues all around the planet, literally, and learn the basics of your field. You also should learn a little bit of the history. You shouldn't be one-dimensional brainiac nerd. You should learn how to write and to read. Resources like Nancy's books, those are inspirational. And the videos that they have, Universe Today, the resources, there's so much out there. The key is to be decisive and to be discriminating in the good sense, to know what is good and find reliable sources and just go as deep as you can. And by the time you get to college, you should have a very firm footing, know the history of your field, know the communications tools in your field. And I think that would be a long way. And who knows? My nephew is going to a very prestigious school. He's starting as a junior at age 18 because he did so much education online and with tutors, all the available resources from Khan Academy to all these coding tools, which are becoming a new language. But you have to have a lot in place before you get there, and then you could take advantage in an efficient manner.
That's awesome. Actually, Nancy, I think maybe to move this over to you for input, especially because of what you've done and everything that you provided and everything that you've inspired people to do. What do you anything to add to what Brian is saying there?
Well, definitely, the everything that's online these days is they're so amazing, but again, you do have to be discriminating about your sources and really seek out things that are true. And I know there's a lot of disinformation out there. We see that every day in the news, and I don't know. I struggle as a journalist these days about my profession and how can things change? How can we be, I'm sounding like an old person, but how can we go back to the day when you watched the news on TV with your trusted Walter Cronkite and knew that he was telling you the truth? And so I don't know how things are going to go forward. It seems like we're kind of tumbling out of control a little bit. So I think it's important for journalists and associations of journalists and all the support networks out there. It's just important for us to hold each other accountable. Also, speak out when you see something online that's not true, that's false. that kind of thing. So I don't know if you want to have me talk about my kind of unusual path to what I'm doing today right now or not, but
Yep, we will definitely get to that. I think,
okay. Well,
yeah.
I'm kind of a perfect example of how things never turn out the way you think they're going to. So I went to college thinking I wanted to be in radio. And so I started off with a mass communications degree. I ended up majoring in English because I was an intern on a radio station and I absolutely hated it. And so when I graduated with my degree in English literature with a mass communications emphasis, I didn't know what I really wanted to do when I graduated. All I knew is that I didn't want to be a teacher. Well, of course, I ended up as a teacher. But I taught at a science museum teaching about space because I've always been interested in space exploration. So I had this really unique teaching experience, which led me to start writing because, interacting with kids and the public, I realized how little the general public knew about what was going on at NASA or the other space agencies around the world, and just all the amazing things that were being done and developed and all those things. So I started writing for, local newspapers, and then this was about the time around the new millennium when the internet was really taking off, and I got some stories published online, and then in 2004 I started writing for Fraser Cain at Universe Today, and that's kind of the rest is history. But I feel like I was able to take advantage of all the opportunities online, and there are definitely exponentially more now these days than when I first started. Things available online for people to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, it's I think on traditional paths, I think that's actually a common theme that actually I think a bunch of us on this panel have actually, that we've actually got here by untraditional means, that we didn't actually set out right from 16 years old or whatever to say this is exactly what we're going to do and this is kind of how we ended up. And now I have an interesting question that came in. I think this is actually something that we should look at fielding right now, because I think it's actually very, very relevant. So how do we get parents in lower school on board? So is it a belief that we can help us going to Mars? Most people don't even understand why we are trying to go there. And I think, Matt, you would actually be a perfect person to actually start off answering this question, because you talk about this on social media a lot about either ors type scenarios, and how do we get people on board to actually start looking at space and STEM and parents?
Well, I'd be piggybacking on what Brian and Nancy both raised here, which is just the level of misinformation and misconceptions that are out there. But I'm in the process of doing another article about that very thing. Like, where does this thinking come from, and how to deal with it? Because of course it can be frustrating, but you have to understand that people are trying to. They're coming from a good place. They just don't fully appreciate certain facts there, and for whatever reason, they're not making the rounds nearly enough. And it is the job, I think, of a science communicator more than anything else, is to try and show what the benefits of the STEMs and space-related research and funding for these things, how important they are. In terms of parents in the lower school board, that's pretty specific. But in general, what I like to tell people is that going to space, there is the assumption that this somehow takes away from Earth, and I don't know where that comes from. But it's a very it is something that's actually been around since the Apollo era. It's the first thing people who were critical of space programs said. And I remember seeing this wonderful cartoon that illustrated it. It showed a young, poor child in a very clearly inner city environment, wearing tattered clothes, looking out the window and seeing the moon. And it's like, astronauts are landing there right now. That's great, but my belly's still empty, and so forth. And so if I were addressing parents, and especially in the classroom setting, I would point out to people that, well, money that we put into space exploration doesn't come from the mouths of people living in poverty. We spend so much more money on so many other things, things that have no tangible benefits, and most of all, this information is publicly available too. NASA's spinoff was created to catalog all the benefits that the research and development they did, and that started shortly. I think it was 1972 they launched spinoff, because they're trying to show all this research we did to land on the moon. We've made that available for free to the public, and the businesses have picked that up, medical science has picked that up, and it's manifested itself in the following patents and technologies and innovations, and it was astounding. So that is the one thing I would be trying to tell to young people and to parents. I think it is, in fact, something that should be taught at an early age. It's like space exploration benefits humanity in countless ways and makes us appreciate life on Earth here in demonstrable ways. So this perception that it's either we go up there and do our thing up there, or we fix the problems down here, that is not how it works. It's not either or. It's actually, they're very much interlinked.
Can I add one thing really concrete and really quick? I would say get a telescope. So buy a telescope, a small telescope. You'll be able to see all the craters on the moon that you can read about in Nancy's book. You can see all the phases of Venus that Galileo saw. You can see the moons of Jupiter. $50. I got that when I was 12, and here I am 38 years later, rather, and I'm a professional. Now, is it guaranteed? No. But and you don't need an instruction manual. Just take it out, put something in, look up the instructions for 5 minutes, point it at the bright thing in the sky, not the sun. Take it from me. I'm an astronomer. But that's $50 worth of education. And as I always say, you can replicate not only the discoveries that Galileo made, but the feeling of making that discovery. And then couple that with a notebook and a pencil. Cheapest education you can ever get, and who knows where it will lead to, but no one ever walks away from looking at the moon, right, Nancy, or the rings of Saturn or the moons of Jupiter. They're like, let's go back and see what's on Brian Keating's YouTube channel.
So, can I just build on that for a second?
Absolutely. I was just about to come to you. Go, take it away, Susan.
Well, the question says, how do we get parents involved? And I think we have an obligation in the community to make events, museums, planetarium visits, things like that, easier for families, particularly if they're struggling with the ability to pay for admission. So we need to have more open events where parents can be encouraged to bring, their kids to the planetarium, or to help get them the first telescope. And I don't think that ends with K through 12. I think we need to continue that throughout the grades, because in my situation, I had a couple of family scientists that sort of inspired me, but I didn't really pick up on it until I was in my 40s when my own kids were grown and I had some time to pursue it. So, I think it's sort of a lifelong thing. Encourage, inspire, and certainly everyone here is doing that already.
Awesome. I think, we do see that come up a lot where, why are we worrying about that when we have to fix all these problems down here? But we've seen so many, we're not going to name them today. Would literally have to fill an encyclopedia saying what has actually benefited Earth because of what actually, because it's that reach, it's that innovation. It's that, as Brian, as your podcast is about reaching into the impossible, doing all these incredible things that require extreme amounts of innovation and courage and grit and everything allows us to actually do things that we would not normally have done. And I think, we could actually fill literally volumes of encyclopedias based on all the benefits that have actually happened here on Earth, that our life is better today. No, it's not 100% perfect, but we can't blame that. It's almost like they're blaming the space industry for what's happening here on Earth. Like, well, why don't you fix it? Well, we did, it's not, this isn't a blame situation, and I always come back to my own self. And I think I've actually gotten called out a few times when I've said this myself, when I say, well, first of all, that the people that, you say, well, why don't you actually put your efforts here on Earth? Well, this isn't where their passion lies. They lie in solving these problems for space, and let people do what they do best. And you know what? We will reap the benefits and the rewards of what's actually happening there. So it's almost like, why would you prevent somebody doing something that they really are passionate about? Because they're not going to make those same kind of innovations and improvements here on Earth if that's what their focus is. It's almost like me. Oh, why don't you become a carpenter? I don't like that. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So why would I go do that? I'm going to do what I actually really enjoy. And anything that is a byproduct of what I actually enjoy, you get to benefit from in other areas. So it really does not make sense. So I think it's a fantastic discussion about that. But I guess, moving on, I don't want to kind of narrow down too much on that. I think, what I'd like to get into now is maybe the more difficult discussion. And I think that this is where, kind of why I pulled this panel together to talk about is, if we do a case in point, if I take myself as an example, so I got into the SciComm industry, really actually the Mars Society is really where I got my chance. I mean, I was following a lot of groups. I was, Brian, you're one of my mentors. I've been looking at what you've been doing for years, same with Nancy and Matt. I've been following you all, reading and I was, how do I get involved in that? So what I did is I started creating content. I started learning. I started going into circles and finding my own path. And of course, here I am today talking to you amazing people. So, it is possible for somebody who doesn't have any background whatsoever to actually be in the midst of this and actually have the privilege to talk to people like you. And I'm definitely extremely humbled and privileged to do that. But to go into to build on that, science communication is not quite the same thing. And I don't want to kind of put this on us versus them, but, to become an astronomer or to become a science communicator, they're kind of at the opposite ends of things. From my perspective, you have to be accredited to do a lot of things that are in the STEM industry. You can't just go and be an engineer. You can't just go and decide tomorrow that I want to be. Now, I think that we should be able to take that path, but what does that path look like? And that's where this difficult discussion I find for myself is, how do I get there? If I go, Dr. Keating, if I look at what, you're in particle physics, you're an experimental physicist. How does somebody like me in my age, we'll just say I'm older than 30, decide on a whim, my passion, actually that's my passion is physics. That's one I've always enjoyed. My love in my whole life since I've been a child has been physics. It's been particle physics. It's, and to be experimental physics and theoretical physics. So how does somebody like me, so if we lay that out, if we say this is the goal, let's take someone that's in my scenario, in my situation, how do we actually guide them? How do we mentor them and say, how do we get you working? And not necessarily focusing on the end. Let's not focus on the PhD. Let's look at maybe the stepping stones to get there, because I think would be overwhelming. That would be very difficult for somebody to actually picture that in, is how do I get a PhD and become a theoretical physicist tomorrow? Okay, let's not go there. That's a big ask. That's a big jump. Let's talk about, what is the next step? What are the steps in the ladder that we take as an adult that's maybe in another career? Could be, for me, it's actually computer science. How do you go from there to, let's say, be an astronomer? How do you go down that path? What does that look like?
Well, I think it's, obviously, like learning anything, STEM is a language all its own. And, I don't play any instruments, I can barely play Spotify. But my regret of not learning it is kind of compensated by my passion and my curiosity that I maintain now. So every now and then when my kids is taking, a music lesson, I'll kind of listen in and think about it and how would I actually play it and encourage them and kind of vicariously live through them. Now asking, how do you go about getting involved? That's a very different thing from getting a PhD, as you say. So I would say the way to start is not, and I say this to young people too. People say, Dr. Keating, almost every day, put me to work. I'm smart. Here's my CV. I can do anything. Tell me what to do. I'll do it. I'll work for free. I'll be your intern. And I say, thanks so much for handing me like a 3-hour homework assignment. Because now I have to look into and think about all the ways that I can not only provide you with a course of action, a flight plan through the course material or through the investigation that you're curious about. I have to look at your skills, match them up, and then I have to think about some rubric to apprise how you're doing, then some metrics to know, did I make an impact? Did I not? It's a big ask, okay? So people out there that are gonna, say, love and want to help out or love my channel or whatever, don't ask me what you can do for me, as Kennedy said. Do something. So provide something. You're a computer scientist. So you couldn't show me, oh, well, here's some very interesting material in AI, GPT-3. I'm very interested in that. Can we take the collected works of Galileo, as I'm doing now, and convert those to a GPT-3 simulation of Galileo so that he can teach you mechanics instead of me teaching you mechanics? And you can learn the beautiful stories and beautiful prose, as Nancy can probably attest. He was one of the greatest writers, not just science writers in human history. And so you could do something. You can make a little project, make a video for me. Show me what you can do. Don't just tell me that you're interested. And then once I see, well, what are your skills? How do they mesh with what we're doing, my program? How do they align? And I always say it's not really the subject matter that's, let's say you're interested in particle physics. Well, what if I tell you, it'll be harder for you to learn particle physics because you won't be able to find as good an advisor or somebody that can give you access to something as condensed matter physics, theoretical condensed matter physics. There's somebody who is a great teacher or is doing good content and you can find it online. So you have to only recognize that it may not be what you want to study, but you may study with the right person. And the root of the word education, I was just telling my 10-year-old about this tonight, the word educate means to bring out of. It doesn't mean to pour into. And so you want to bring out of yourself. That means finding the right teacher may not be exactly what you want it to do. So you have to be open to it. So you have to have a flexible mind and a nimble mind and have the brain plasticity at 30 billion seconds old. If you're 3 billion seconds old, if you're 90, or 1 billion seconds old if you're 30, like you are, Ron. And using that plasticity, be flexible and show what you can do. Show your work. Don't be scared to show it in public. Make it something where the creator can see it or the educator can see it, and then let him or her decide how they can best, maybe interact with you, and maybe it will be a good fit.
Yeah, that's actually fantastic. I mean, we actually are at a very unprecedented time in history, really, when you think about it, because we were afforded a lot of opportunity to brand and promote ourselves like we have never been able to do before. Before the internet, and before even, I would say, the last couple of years, with social networks and the ability to actually stand out and above and beyond. To be honest, that's why I'm here, being able to talk to you today, is because I actually branded myself. I was unknown 3 years ago in social media at all. Yeah. And of course, now look at what I get to do today, because I actually took the initiative and I decided that I want to actually be help. I want to stand out. I want to actually make a difference. And I went from, and my goal at that time was, because I was in cybersecurity and I still am, I was protecting an organization. I actually had this inside urge, deep urge to say, I want to help a lot more people. I want to actually do more and for more people and be a bigger, larger impact. And of course, the LinkedIn is actually where I got my where I would do a lot of my work. And actually that's what afforded me that ability to do that, because I just started helping people. I didn't look at it for followers, likes, clicks, whatever. It was just about how many people can I help and how can I make a difference. And I think from the STEM perspective, people have that ability. You can actually start posting, okay, I want to learn something cool about the multiverse. I want to start, talking and discussing that, the latest research, of course, which they'll find, talking to you about what's going on there, or Lawrence Krauss. And they can actually talk about that and actually get engaging conversations started on social media, where you actually will stand out to recruiters and things like that. So I think, it's an amazing time in history for that. And I think, coming to Nancy, maybe if you'd like to jump in on that, yeah, obviously in the communication side and promoting and branding, what do you see from people that are returning in that untraditional path, from that perspective? How can they actually get started and leading down a path? And I want to kind of be very specific on this aspect, in a path where it leads to a career that in this field, because I think there's a lot going on in terms of volunteering. There's a lot of volunteers. There's a lot of free work that's happening in this industry. So people are actually, and I think, I have heard a lot of stories where people do this for so long and they kind of give up. They realize, I've been doing this and doing this and doing this, and I never make any money. Now, I know it's not about the money, but eventually it's got to be about the money. you have to eat. I mean, I'm getting thinner, as you can see. You know, I'm down about 50 pounds. You know.
Well, yeah, what you said, Ron, is completely on point as far as the availability of opportunities right now. You know, if you're interested in being a science communicator, you can start your own YouTube channel, I think, for the cost of a web camera, and just do it. I had Matt and I have the privilege of working with one of the smartest people in the industry, Fraser Cain of Universe Today. And I've been in conversations with him when he's talking with others. And he says, if you want to write, if you want to be a writer, just write. Okay. So for $30 a year, you can start your own website and just start writing. Write what you want to write. If you want to write a book, start writing. Just sit down and just put your butt in the chair and your pen to paper every day and just do it. So it's, again, I mean, TikTok videos and Instagram, there are all these opportunities, and believe it or not, people are making money on these little short videos that are very eye-catching. You can do a lot of just so much with the video availability right now, but writing too as well. There are just today I was having a conversation on a Slack channel with some of my other writer friends, and there are a lot of openings for science journalism right now. I don't know exactly what the turnover is, if it's because of the pandemic or whatever, but there are just a lot of openings. I do not have a journalism degree, but I was very passionate about space exploration and wanted to write about it because I wanted more people to know about it. And if you have that passion, you can just start writing, and people are going to notice your work. And then as you mentioned, Ron, the ability to do self-promotion is great. And once you make connections, we were talking how I've known Susan for years online, but we've never had the chance to actually sit here and look at each other and talk to each other before. But I kind of feel like I know her because of our connections online. So those availabilities are out there. And I had the benefit of having a great mentor in Fraser Cain. I love mentoring young writers, which we've done on Universe Today and other places as well. And, there are other organizations that are doing this as well, and I know, as you mentioned, Ron, about the volunteer work that's being done. And I'd have to say that, yes, there comes a time when you kind of feel like you've given all you can give, perhaps. But a lot of those volunteer opportunities end up turning into something more. And I've had that experience a lot in my life. So if you find something you're passionate about, get involved. You're going to meet people. You're going to have opportunities that you never thought of would happen. And and that's connecting with other people is really what this life is about. And that's what you need to do, is connect with other people.
No, it's fantastic. And the thing about volunteering opportunities in this industry is that they're not full time; they're part time. I mean, they are what you make it. And you want to make the most of the time that you're actually spending. And as long as you enjoy it, I mean, I love what I'm doing. This is my third show, and I have to give major thanks to Mike Stoltz, which I think a lot of you know, and he's the one that really kind of went with giving me a shot and giving me a chance. So I have to give huge thanks to him, and James Burke, and Dr. Robert Zubrin. He came on as my episode 1, which was fantastic. I mean, it's funny when he came on the camera, I went, "You got to be kidding me!" I'm actually interviewing Dr. Robert Zubrin. So it's just amazing. So it really is what you make of it, and I think that's an important thing to do, is you do that exploratory process of what you actually love and what you want to do. And I always I say this often, is that you actually will find talents that you never knew you had. because you just keep exploring and you keep doing this. You know, it's like when I first started in social media, I thought I was just a IT tech nerd. You know, who wants to listen to what I have to say? But it actually turned out that I had, you know, some talents in the social media and the marketing and hosting shows and talking on camera. I never knew that. I never thought that. It just kind of happened because I was exploring. And I think that's an important distinction to make, is just to really keep exploring. And so, Susan, I'm wondering if you want to add in anything when it comes to kind of the promotion, the branding. Think about your own path and what you got here, and how did that look, and anything you want to add for the audience.
My path, very, very different than others. You know, I was in law for a lot of years, got a law degree, got an MBA. And around 2007, when Chris Carberry was CEO of the Mars Society, I was just finishing up my MBA, and I had been working with Bruce McKenzie at the Mars Foundation. I can't say I'm very proud of what I did there, but you know, I got involved with Chris, Steve McDaniel, and started doing on the admin side some work, and that led to eventually. Now I teach college. That's my day gig. But for the Mars Society, I worked on the Mars Quarterly, which was, you know, a newsletter for a lot of years. We had some fun with. Shout out to Keith Keplinger for art directing. He really made it what it was. Can't say I did, but I had a lot of fun networking. Got to interview Elon Musk and Chris McKay at NASA and a whole bunch of other, you know, really famous people, which allowed me to develop this huge Rolodex, if you forgive the old term. So networking, I absolutely agree, networking is important. And then from there, you know, I started working, you know, I ended up filling in for Lucinda, who was executive director for a while and then had to take a holiday. And so I filled in for about a year, and then steering committee and some other things. But the whole point of this is you don't have to have the STEM background. I certainly didn't. I just had a love of Mars and wanted to figure out how the heck can I contribute to getting us there. And so I signed on to do a little admin work, and the rest is history. But I also want to say at the Mars Desert Research Station, we're always looking for volunteers there. And frequently we get people in the computer industry or other industries who just want to have a crew experience, or they want to help with maintenance, those types of things. And then once they're there, you know, this door opens and they get very excited about space. And sometimes it changes the whole course of their life. So I like to get young people involved in those type of opportunities. I think it makes a big difference. But you can, you know, just coming out of my world, you can approach it from the admin side if that's your skill set.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, I think that's really, you know, how I was doing it too. I mean, I was, you know, in a completely different industry, and I guess I still am, and I'm kind of moonlighting in both, or maybe many. And of course, if we add in the multiverse, Brian, I'm actually probably doing it about a couple billion careers right now. But you know, I think it's important to really just start. Is to follow your passion, and I really like what you said, actually, Brian, earlier, is that it's not necessarily where you start, where you think you're going to start. You may actually start following or start going down a path where it's like if it's going to be astronomy, you may start in something totally else that leads you there. So it's not necessarily a straight line. It may be a zigzag all over the place, right? So I think it's you know, we want to kind of start that path. And and one thing that too, now Matt, I want to kind of jump into you in terms of writing, because obviously you're a journalist and you actually write for a lot of publications. I mean, you're also an author. You actually have, you know, 3 books out there that you've written so far as well, and I think there's more in the pipeline. I believe I heard you hinting at as well. So you know, you've got 3 amazing fiction. So yeah, I'd like to hear your path and your journey and what you recommend as well for people that want to come from the writing and the journalist side of getting into the industry.
Well, I want to say off the bat that Nancy's story and mine, there are some uncanny similarities there, but I'd say the one main thing, the big fulcrum there was Fraser Cain, right? Because I actually, I went to school and studied to become an educator. Nancy, there, you know. The difference being, I actually intended to get into that field. But yeah, I found that I studied history and English literature as teachables. But what fascinated me the most was the like applied science, and Galileo was a major inspiration there. In university, I found that what I loved the most was intellectual history, especially the stuff that talked about discoveries and innovations, because these didn't come naturally to me. At least I didn't think they did. Pure sciences and maths, they just they sent me running for the hills there. They always scared me because I'm not very left-brained, so I wasn't very good at it. And I wish someone had told me early on that there's still pathways from, you love the social sciences, you love history, there are pathways from that into the STEM fields. You need to know what your options are. You need to have that an understanding of that in front of you. It's not just sciences or arts. But anyway, yeah, I was teaching until about 2010, when I met Fraser Cain, because I knew his wife, and I was an aspiring science fiction writer at the same time, because, like I said, it's the stuff that fascinates me. And he took interest. He said, "Okay, you're a writer, you're an educator. How would you like to do some articles for this publication?" And it took about 4 years of doing part-time stuff there. But I was following his advice meticulously about developing a blog, sharing science-related news and science fiction-related news as a way of, drawing attention to my own work. I also considered it research. And yeah, then he said, interesting fact, we now have, I'd like you to do regular stuff for Universe Today. And and he also pulled some strings to get me writing for HeroX, which had just launched at the time, and that's the crowdfunding platform by Peter D. Mandis. And yeah, a year later, I quit teaching. Had sort of one foot out the door for that whole year, 2014 to 2015. I was like, I want to be doing this. So, first, I finally got the opportunity to sort of leave without leaving anybody high and dry, and I did. And since then, never looked back. And I feel like I'm going along here, so let me just wrap it up here before they play the Oscar music. It informed my science fiction writing too. And then it was very fortunate there. It was luck, but yeah, just having a social media presence, being able to share content with people on a regular basis. When I started talking about science fiction books I was writing, a publisher contacted me. And yeah, it's been that way ever since, really.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, thank you, Matt, for that. I mean, it's, I love your work, and I was definitely, very excited, to have you come on the panel for sure. And so Dr. Keating, one thing I think, that's interesting, I think, you probably had a traditional path into STEM going up, but now you're kind of doing the inverse, where, you're basically in science communication as well with your podcast and everything you're doing. So you're actually kind of, I think you're kind of moving from, I'd say moving, but you get your feet in both sides. You're kind of in both boats at the same time. Now, how do you find that transition and that pivot? Because you're kind of doing a bit of the opposite of what maybe some other people would do.
Yeah, I guess I kind of joke nowadays that I think that scientists have a moral obligation to explain what they do to the people that pay their salaries and fund their hobbies. I mean, let's be honest, most of us would do this for free. And the fact that we get to do it is really a byproduct of the largesse of the taxpayers here in America, or in the 51st state of Canada. No, I'm just kidding. Fraser and all you guys, I'm just teasing. But you guys, I assume, also have a similar program. And we actually have many colleagues on my projects that are from Canada. And the bottom line is, I feel like there's too much kind of preciousness around our discoveries, and that we tend to either think, I'm going to have to dumb it down for the public. No, I never dumb it down. I refuse to do that. It's simply not within my makeup to do so. And But I do believe that every scientist who gets a grant, they should have to explain some of their findings to the public in a language that public can understand. I think we're past the time where we can say, oh, you can't understand it, or, as Feynman said, if I could explain it to you, it wouldn't be worth a Nobel Prize. I can actually explain GED, not maybe to my 10-year-old, but I can explain it to a bright high school student easily. And that's what he got his Nobel Prize for. So I think that was kind of more of the showmanship of that particular individual. But anyway, the bigger point is we should and we must do this, and we must get this out to the public, or we risk their generosity being turned towards other means. And in this age of pandemics and space travel and everything, we just can't afford it. We're going to fall really far behind. And I think I'm trying to do that and keep it high level. You ask, how do I do that? The reason I can do it is because I keep it interesting. Every teacher knows it's more fun to teach advanced stuff than teach preschool, which I have to do on occasion. But it's much more fun if you don't dumb it down. So I like to keep it very high level. I'm blessed to have a studio here at UC San Diego, and to have these wonderful individuals that come on my podcast, someday Nancy too, and that allows me to do deep dives with the most brilliant intellectual lights in the known multiverse. And so for that, I'm very grateful, and I view it as an obligation to give back.
I'd like to add, though, that if anybody's interested in learning what it's like to be a scientist, read Brian's book. Losing the Nobel Prize is the name of his book. And he really, yes, there you go, really does a great job of explaining what it's like to be a scientist, the trials, the tribulations, the exaltations, the everything. And I loved your book, Brian, and I thought it was wonderful. And so I want to highly recommend Brian's book if you're interested in reading what it's like to be a scientist.
Thank you. It's fantastic. And one thing that interesting take that, I don't think that, everybody has the ability to dumb it down. And I think, as you're saying, Brian, is that you don't have to. The good thing about what we have and what's afforded to us in this industry is that there are people that actually could be that bridge. You don't have to dumb it down, but there actually are people out there that actually love going in there and actually making something more accessible and making something complicated for others to understand and get them that foothold. And eventually they're going to improve and they're going to get better. And then they're going to be able to understand.
I would say
you directly.
When colleagues say, "Oh, how do you do it?" Ron, you've developed so much, and it's really hard. But people say, "Oh, it's too hard. I can't." My colleagues, I can't do it. It's really hard, and it's just not what I'm meant to do. Or I say, "Oh yeah, I guess you were born knowing quantum chromodynamics and relativistic string field theory," and they're like, no, I had to work at that. Oh, you had to work at it. Oh, that's very interesting. And you're absolutely right, Ron. The other thing we have is the greatest story ever told. We have the greatest material, the source material, the script, from STEM to the stars, including STEAM, and it's just like we've given scientists this wonderful gift, and then we've said, we forgot to tell them to unmute themselves on Zoom. It's really awful, and I do hope to, if in a small way, inspire more scientists to get into this this mode of communication.
Oh, that's awesome. And so, Susan, if we take a look at, with the work that you do with the Mars Society and, this communication that goes on that you need to do to communicate, what do you recommend? Like anything that you can give for tips and advice for people that kind of want to follow maybe the way that you went through, and what else can they do to go down that path? I mean, of course, you and I being at the Mars Society, and how do we, what is your take? What can you add to that?
Well, for me, it was building, helping to build the brand for the Mars Society on social media. I remember a time, and I hope Dr. Zubrin will forgive me for this, but I remember him saying, "We don't need Twitter," and so Michael, we brought Michael on, whose one of his previous positions was in the media office for Benjamin Netanyahu, a lot of experience, and so he brought that efficiency to the whole process. But really, getting yourself out on social media and posting often is the key. One of the things that I do, I'm just sort of a news aggregator, I call myself. So if Nancy posts something that sounds really interesting and relevant, or Brian or Matt or you, I'll retweet that. and sometimes with a comment, sometimes not, just to kind of keep that discussion going. And there's a whole technique to that. You know, how often you do it. Can you set up automated tweets, or, you know, just focusing on Twitter now? But, you know, establish your brand. You know, get out there. I think Nancy and Brian said that, maybe even Matt. You know, just be seen. Get out there. Start developing your network. Different channels. And not necessarily the channels that you might think of. So like Dr. Zubrin, not thinking about Twitter at the time, and now he's all over Twitter, but let's try to think outside of the four corners of your universe, if you will, to see where, you know, if those posts might be more effective.
Yeah, corners or triangle?
One of those.
I think Brian, you did one of your recent podcasts were talking about that. You can draw a triangle wherever you look. Why is that? That's for another day. We'll talk about that another day. That's at least for 3-hour discussion on that. So yeah, no, I think this has been amazing. So I think you know, really the takeaway that I'm getting from this is that, you know, there doesn't need to be a traditional path. There doesn't even need to really be a path, you know, a linear path at all. It's really just getting out there, asserting yourself, making yourself be seen, be heard, you know, have people, and they will pay attention to you. I think, you know, one thing that you said, Brian, was, you know, making it entertaining, making it interesting. You know, you get excited about talking about things that are complicated, that are complex, and educating people on that. And I think is when you get excited about something, that energy that you project, you know, that's infectious, and people will see that. They can see that even by the writing. The writing style itself changes to, you know, considerably. If you don't actually excited about what you're talking about, writing about, it's just bland, it's boring, it's not fun. And I think you can actually use that as your own measure. And I did that when I was actually coming into IT, tech, cyber, and space. I was looking at how I was actually projecting and presenting that information that I was doing and that I was communicating to people. And if I was sitting there and no one was looking at it or no one was caring. And then eventually I started hitting my stride, and I was getting a lot of views, and I was getting, you know, some of my posts were getting, you know, 300,000, 500,000 views. And, you know, so I was doing quite well for myself in social media, and I guess I still am. And, you know, and it really showed that I was actually on the right track. And I think you can use that as a measure for your own path to say, but you need to start, you need to get going, you need to do something, because action, it's, you know, we can talk about something all day long. And, you know, people don't remember what you talk about. They remember what you action. And it's getting out there and doing it and being seen doing it. And I think that that's something that I think all of you do extremely well. And you do that through your books, through your podcasts, through your impact, and really the impact that you leave people with. You know, even if you're not directly on social media doing videos, you know, I hear such great things about all of you, you know, from people that are in the field. And that just shows you the impact that you're having on their lives, whether they're young people, whether they're older adults returning, you know, trying to pivot the industry. So it's fantastic. So I think, you know, as we kind of coming to, you know, the hour coming up. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, I want to extend my appreciation to all of you again for coming on and, you know, sharing your story, sharing your insights, and helping mentoring guide, you know, the audience. And of course, you know, people are going to be able to go back and watch this and really have a lot of takeaways. But so what I want to do is I kind of want to go around, and this day we're going to do counterclockwise, just because why not? And so your closing thoughts and anything you'd like to promote and present, anything you're passionate about, if you want to talk about any upcoming conferences, books, podcasts, guests, anything like that to help promote what you're working on as well. So let's start, Dr. Keating, I'll start with you first, and we'll go counterclockwise from there.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, I have a podcast on audio, and my YouTube channel is Dr. Brian Keating. Audio is Into the Impossible. I have a new book coming out on September 28th, and it's called Into the Impossible, Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner. And I took my 9 interviews with Nobel laureates, and I edited, extracted good, juicy nuggets and actionable habits, tactics, tricks, and ideas, not from their knowledge. I always say, you know, science means knowledge, but wisdom is what Homo sapien means. And I care more about their wisdom than their knowledge. You can look up their knowledge. You can't find their wisdom anywhere except for this book. And the one theme that I want to leave people with is a very common theme. The reason I decided to release this book is Barry Barish, winner of the 2017 Nobel Prize. He wrote the foreword to my new upcoming book. And he inspired the book because he was the first Nobel laureate to really confess to me that he suffered from the imposter syndrome, not before winning the Nobel Prize, after winning the Nobel Prize. And I want people to really share in this. The book will be out of the first day. It'll be 99 cents. So I'm not doing it for the money. This is called Think Like a Nobel Prize Winner. You can find it on Amazon already. And other than that, I look forward to getting feedback on all my outreach and stuff like that, and drop me a line. But don't give me any homework assignments. Ask not what.
I got to cross it off my list now.
I do hope also to have Nancy.
Awesome.
Thank you guys
Nancy,
so much. I'm going to put some pre-graduate students to bed soon.
Awesome. Okay, Nancy, take it away.
All right. Well, can't wait to read your book, Brian. That sounds really great. Yes. Again, I'm Nancy Atkinson, science journalist, space and science journalist, primarily for Universe Today and also for the National Space Society and the Planetary Society. My first book is Incredible Stories from Space, about NASA's robotic missions and the people who work on Earth behind the scenes who you don't normally hear about, who make those missions possible. And my second book that was out for the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 is 8 Years to the Moon. And again, this is about the people who worked behind the scenes. I only interviewed one astronaut for this book, Rusty Schweikert, and the rest were people that you may have never heard of before, but who made really pivotal contributions or decisions, or somehow it changed the course of history so that we made it to the moon. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Matt, take it away.
Yeah, so I'm Matt Williams, and I'm a writer for Universe Today, primarily interesting engineering. I do what's known as evergreen content, so generally historical or just big idea stuff. And if you look up my name online there, you'll find a link to the fiction books I've published so far. And this is the first. It's called The Cronian Incident. Cronian being adjective for having to do with Saturn. So basically, part of it takes place on Saturn's largest moon, Titan. It was followed by the Jovian Manifesto. And there, pretty good artwork on that one there. And most recently, just at the tail end of 2020, was the Frost Line Fracture, and these are all part of the trilogy, so that concluded it. In the near future, myself and a colleague, we're going to be releasing a book that addresses the Fermi paradox and how it's held up over time, roughly 70 years later. And I neglected to mention this earlier. I hope Vera will forgive me, but I'm also currently, this is a relatively new position, but I'm currently the Director of Media Communication for Mars City Design. And I posted a link in here, Ron, if you can show it. In any case, Mars City Design will be releasing a series of podcasts that'll be premiering on the Space Channel, and they're also available for purchase. The Space Channel will start showing them in later in September. And these podcasts are all about, they're told from the point of view of fictional people who are third-generation Martian, explaining what life is like there. So it's kind of it is a sort of a mission, which is how to create sustainable living on Mars. That's what Mars City Design does. It's advocacy for settling on Mars, like the Mars Society. And this is a little science fiction added to the mix.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, Matt. That was amazing, and congratulations on the new position. And definitely knowing you, it's well deserved. And Vera, good pick. Kudos. And Susan, if you want to take it away and let us know, and I'm sure you want to also mention the upcoming conference as well. So take it away.
Yeah, just a big plug here for the Mars Society, since we're on that channel. Our convention is in October from the 14th through the 17th. It'll be held virtually again this year. It was very successful last year, primarily through the efforts of James Burke, who I can't say enough of. And we had about 10,000 viewers last year, and we're hoping for a similar number. And it was sort of a wake-up call to us. We've been having on-ground conventions for years, and maybe a couple thousand, 2,000, 3,000 attendees off and on over a series of days. But when we went virtual, we realized that the draw was much larger. We were very surprised, actually. So please join us there. Great lineup of speakers, Michael and James and Lucinda and everybody else involved. We've all been recruiting speakers, and I have to tell you, some of them are pretty amazing. And so I'm looking forward to October quite a bit. So we'll see you there. It's free, register for free. Donations are encouraged, but not required.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And go ahead, Matt. Do you have something else to say?
I have one fun fact, actually, I wanted to mention here. And it's a little shout out to the Mars Society. When I was working on my second book, The Jovian Manifesto, I was writing a segment of it that took place on Mars, and I wanted there to be a museum that honored the history of the Martian people. I needed a name for it, and I thought, well, the Musk Museum of Settlement was way too on the nose. Wanted something just slightly esoteric there, so I named it after Robert Zubrin. And we had not yet met at this point or spoken, so that was completely unsolicited, not intended to flatter him, but it's in there, and he knows about it now.
Well done.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody. So again, I want to extend my gratitude to the panelists, to the audience, everybody from coming by today. Now, this is a live broadcast. Nobody passed out on camera yet. We still have a few minutes to go. But no, I really do. I want to just extend my appreciation for you guys spending some time with me tonight and for helping really, get this information out to people. And really, I think, I was looking for, my idea for the show kind of veered off course a little bit here, which I'm actually kind of glad it did. I think what you really did for me, and I think for everybody else here, is you actually provided a great deal of inspiration. And that to me is a lot more important than having this finite, this dedicated path. What does this look like, and what's A, B, C, D, and follow this line? I think, what we did here today, I love that it was so inspiring. And I think that a lot of people are going to really take away to say, I can do this. I can be part of this. I can be part of putting humans on Mars. I don't have to just go through and have this complicated 8-year, 12-year, 10-year to actually make a difference. I can actually start doing something today. And I think that we've shown that today, that you can actually go and do that. You can start out, do something, take action, have a podcast, start writing, just get moving, just start. I know starting is always, we say it as cliche that, starting is hard. It is hard, but you know what? Do it. That's all we can really, that's the advice we can really give you is you got to go do it. And again, I want to extend my appreciation to everybody, audience, the panelists, thank you very much. And if you want to stick around for a couple minutes at the end of the show, we can wrap up there as well. I want to thank you again. So we're just going to close out the show now, and thank you, everybody, and I really appreciate it. And panel, I'll see you in about a minute.
Bye, guys.
Sometime in the next few decades, humans will leave this planet to live in another world.
That means that some people in our life can be the first Martians. How about that?
We're finding out a lot about how to explore Mars in our station. Over 1,000 people from over 40 countries have actually participated in one crew or another.
It's the grandest adventure I could possibly imagine. That is, for me, the most important reason why we should pursue the establishment of life on Mars.
If we go to Mars in our time, 200 years from now, there'll be new branches of human civilization on Mars.